Managing the moving pieces. Why property management requires a different level of control. As we move into Chapter 3, we step into one of the most operationally intensive areas of real estate, property management. Unlike traditional sales transactions, which have a defined start and finish, property management is continuous. It involves ongoing relationships, repeated financial activity, and constant oversight. This makes it one of the highest risk areas reviewed in the Broker Audit Declaration, BAD. Under AAC R4281103, the designated broker is responsible for supervising all real estate activity, but in property management, that supervision must be consistent and ongoing. The broker is not just overseeing a deal, they are overseeing a system that operates daily. This includes rent collection, maintenance coordination, lease enforcement, and financial accounting. This section builds directly on Chapter 2. If trust accounts represent the financial responsibility of a brokerage, property management represents the operational execution of that responsibility. Residential versus commercial property management. Understanding the differences. Property management is not one size fits all. Residential and commercial management operations differ significantly in structure, complexity, and risk. Residential property management typically involves single-family homes, condos, or small multifamily properties. These operations are often standardized, with lease agreements, tenant screening processes, and routine maintenance schedules. However, they still require strict compliance with Arizona landlord-tenant laws and trust account regulations. Commercial property management, on the other hand, is far more complex. It involves managing office buildings, retail centers, or industrial properties, often with multiple tenants and customized lease agreements. Brokers must understand concepts such as CAM charges, expense reconciliations, and long-term lease structures. For example, a brokerage in Chandler managing 50 single-family rental homes will focus on tenant turnover, rent collection, and maintenance coordination. In contrast, a Scottsdale brokerage managing a retail strip center must oversee multiple tenants, lease escalations, and shared expenses across the property. Both require supervision, but the complexity and risk increase significantly in commercial management. Tracking units, doors, and property types, measuring the scope of operations. One of the key elements ADRI looks for in the BAD is how a brokerage tracks its property management activity. This is often measured in doors or units, the number of properties under management. Why does this matter? Because the number of units directly impacts risk and supervision requirements. A brokerage managing 10 units has a very different operational demand than one managing 500. Brokers should be able to clearly identify total number of units, doors, under management, types of properties, single-family, multifamily, commercial, geographic areas of operation, ownership structures, individual owners versus investment groups. For example, a Phoenix brokerage managing 300 doors across multiple zip codes must have systems in place to track rent payments, lease terms, maintenance requests, and owner disbursements for each property. Without proper tracking, errors become inevitable. This ties directly into ARS, paragraph 32.21.51.01, which requires accurate record keeping. If a broker cannot track their inventory, they cannot properly account for funds or demonstrate compliance. Broker oversight of property management licensees. Supervision in action. Property management often involves multiple licensees working under the broker, each handling different aspects of the operation. This creates additional layers of supervision responsibility. Under AAC R4281103B, the broker must actively supervise all licensees, ensuring that leases are properly executed, funds are handled correctly, tenant communications are appropriate, maintenance and vendor relationships are managed professionally. A key risk area is delegation without oversight. Brokers may rely heavily on experienced property managers, but fail to implement systems to monitor their activity. A relevant principle can be tied to ARS, paragraph 32.2153, which allows ADRI to discipline brokers for failure to supervise. Even if a property manager makes the mistake, the broker is ultimately responsible. For example, a Mesa brokerage allows a property manager to handle tenant deposits independently without regular review. If that manager misapplies funds or fails to account for deposits, the broker may face disciplinary action, even if they were unaware of the issue. Supervision is not about trust, it is about verification. Risk areas in high-volume property management brokerages. As property management volume increases, so does risk. High-volume brokerages face unique challenges that require advanced systems and oversight. Common risk areas include mismanagement of security deposits, failure to reconcile trust accounts, incomplete or missing lease agreements, improper handling of maintenance funds, lack of documentation for owner disbursements. These risks are amplified when systems are weak or inconsistent. For example, a large Phoenix brokerage managing 1,000 doors may process thousands of financial transactions each month. Without automated systems, regular audits, and strict policies, discrepancies can quickly arise. This is why ADRI often focuses on high-volume property management brokerages during audits. The potential for consumer harm is significantly higher, and the expectation for supervision is equally elevated. This ties back to earlier chapters. Your systems, Chapter 1, Trust Accounts, Chapter 2, and Supervision Policies, Section 2.4, must all scale with your business activity. Bringing it all together. Property management is where everything we have discussed so far comes together in real time. It requires strong systems, disciplined financial practices, and constant supervision. The Broker Audit Declaration uses this information to evaluate whether a brokerage is equipped to handle the level of activity it has taken on. As we move into the next section, we will take a closer look at property management agreements and documentation, where the legal relationship between broker, owner, and tenant is formally established. Online discussion. Why does property management create higher ongoing risk compared to sales transactions? Answer. Because property management involves continuous financial activity, tenant relationships, and operational responsibilities, increasing the likelihood of errors and compliance issues over time. Why is tracking the number of units, doors, important for a brokerage? Answer. It helps measure the scope of operations, determine supervision needs, and ensure proper systems are in place to manage financial and operational responsibilities. How does broker supervision apply to property management licensees? Answer. The broker must actively oversee lease execution, fund handling, tenant communication, and overall operations to ensure compliance with Arizona law.